Welcome to TOA Talks, the podcast from the Town of Ajax. I'm your host, Devon Jarvis, the Supervisor of Communications Engagement. And on today's episode, we're talking with Chief Administrative Officer Shane Baker. Highlights from today's episode include Shane's history and work as a firefighter and how he advanced his career, transferrable skills and knowledge in other leadership roles and how that helps his role in Ajax, what the typical day looks like as CAO of the town, pandemic and post-pandemic challenges for staff, adapting to changes, and much more.
TOA Talks.
With me today is Shane Baker, the town's Chief Administrative Officer. Welcome, Shane.
Thanks for having me.
So to kind of kick things off here today, first we have a quick and fun icebreaker. So Shane, if you'd like to choose a question from the bowl, I'll read it out. What kind of traditions do you normally have around the holiday season?
Well, obviously getting together with family.
Mm-hmm.
I love decorating the house. I have all kinds of, trinkety things. It kind of drives my family a little bit crazy. There's actually a Salvation Army close to my place, so I'm always, I got all kinds of clothes, right? So I'm always, getting rid of some of my clothes and going there, and then I just can't help but go and see what all of the Christmas decorations
little
are.
Knickknacks, trinkets.
Like there's tons of them at these thrift stores now, right? Mm-hmm. So actually, I just bought one last week, little candle thing. But yeah, I just love decorating the house. That's the main thing for me, and spending lots of time with family.
That's a great time during the holiday season. And, I think that's a great way to relax a little, turn off from work and, enjoy your atmosphere at home. So that's really great to hear. Thanks, Shane. And so I think right now we can kind of get into the real discussion for today, and that's getting to know you a little bit better. So I think my first question for you, for our listeners, is how did you get to where you are in your career now? And did you see yourself becoming a CAO?
Well, I'm going to answer the second part first. No, I never, ever saw myself in this position when I started out. I started out a long time ago, I won't say when, as a firefighter, volunteer firefighter, actually in Pickering, not too far from here. I grew up in Pickering. Cool. But and then made my way through and got on full time with the city of Scarborough, which later became amalgamated into the city of Toronto. But I thought that I would always be in the fire service. Right. But once I was in the fire service for, about 10 years, generally took about 10 to 13 years to be able to get promoted to a captain position. So I didn't really look at what the chances were of getting promoted until I was about 9 years on.
Yeah, you're a little bit more tenured at that time.
Yeah, and then I started looking and realizing that there were hundreds of guys ahead of me, hundreds of people ahead of me in line for promotions, and it wasn't all that likely it was going to happen. And then I started asking some questions of my captain and my supervisors, and they said, yeah, it takes almost 20 years to get promoted. I could not believe.
I had no idea.
Yeah, in a larger department.
Well, yeah,
like
especially
that, right?
with City of Toronto.
Exactly. So, and right around the time that I would have been writing my exams to be promoted, is when we amalgamated with the rest of the cities in the former metropolitan Toronto area. And we went from the City of Scarborough Fire Department of 550 firefighters to the new City of Toronto Fire Department with 3,300 firefighters.
Oh my God, wow.
And so I realized that I needed to maybe, if I wanted to climb the ladder, if you will, a little bit, I needed to kind of go somewhere else.
Yeah, branch off somewhere.
Yeah. And it just so happened at the time that my wife and I were raising our kids north of Toronto, actually in the Lindsay area. And surrounding the Lindsay area, there was a number of rural municipalities that would hire part-time fire chiefs to manage their volunteer departments. And I thought, what a great way to get experience, right? Yeah. So didn't know. My dad had been in management for years. And so I thought, well, maybe it's in my blood. I'll give it a shot. So I did, and I really enjoyed it, actually. I enjoyed being able to make decisions, make things better.
Right, the leadership quality.
I didn't even think about that, really, to tell you the truth. What was going on in the city of Toronto at the time with amalgamation was there was a lot of things that were happening that, there wasn't a lot of input from staff as to how better things could be, how things could be improved. Things were just being, I don't blame the management at the city at the time. There was a lot of change that had to go through and in a short period of time to be able to make this work. But I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way to do that.
Right.
And I'm thinking, making sure that employees are involved is a good way to make sure that things are running right, because the employees, frontline workers, are the ones that really manage things on the road and see whether things are working or not.
Yeah, they're seeing the day to day.
Exactly. So anyway, I got into being a part-time fire chief, and actually I did it in two of the fire departments up there
Okay.
at the same time, simultaneously.
So you were a part-time fire chief for two municipalities while also being a regular firefighter for the city of Toronto.
That's right.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, I started out my first one, and it was supposed to be 20 hours a week, and then they were looking at amalgamation up there. And another fire department asked me if I would take over their fire department as well before, anticipation of amalgamation. I said, okay, fine. But I really found myself burning out.
Right.
So around that time, Headhunter contacted me about being a full-time fire chief of a volunteer department in King Township, which is King City, Nobleton, Schomberg. And was successful in getting that job. And at that point, I left the city of Toronto, which was a huge move. But by that time, I had kind of cut my teeth on being a fire chief and being a leader and a manager, and realized that that was kind of something that I really enjoyed. And while, my peers, firefighters in the city of Toronto, thought it was a crazy move to leave the union, I was confident in my abilities, and I knew that if I wanted to advance my career, that was a step I had to take.
And you're willing to take the risk.
Yeah, I talked it over with my wife, and we understood that it was going to require us moving, because we had to move closer to the municipality, and there was some risk. But I really wasn't too concerned about it, because I was doing well where I was.
Right.
So did that, and so that's in New York Region. And as part of being the fire chief in New York Region, I was part of the York Region Fire Chiefs Association. So I would go to monthly or quarterly meetings, however often they had them, and got to know the other fire chiefs for the full-time departments like Richmond Hill, Markham, Vaughan, and so on. And Richmond Hill approached me. They had a new deputy fire chief's position come up and asked me if I would apply, which I did. So then I became a deputy fire chief of a full-time department, which was a big move for me, actually. Because managing volunteer firefighters and managing full-time firefighters are two different things. Volunteers are doing it, for the most part, they're doing it for their community.
And maybe, they're passionate in their community, it's close to home.
That's right.
Maybe.
They're passionate about the work that they're doing for the community. Whereas in a full-time department, yes, every firefighter starts out, a common question when you're hiring firefighters is, why do you want to do this? Well, I want to help people.
Right.
So that's fine. But after they're on the department for a little while, it becomes more like a job.
Right.
And so you get into that normal relationship where you're dealing with employees and different things that they require through collective bargaining. And so it's a whole different way of managing staff. So anyway, did that move and was able to make some positive change there as well. I started that job in 2001. And then in 2003, the chief of the day retired, and I was appointed fire chief. And I think I was 2003 when I was appointed fire chief. So I was 33 at the time.
Oh, wow. That's very young.
Is that right? Hang on, I got to do the math. Wait, Michael, do you have a pen? So 65, 30, no, it wasn't 33. Anyway, so I was 38.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but still very young to be a full-time fire chief in the GTA. And that, a lot of change had to happen there. The chief that was there before me, loved him, but he had been chief for 30 years.
Right.
In that role for 30 years. And he advanced the department a fair bit as far as new fire stations and with the growth of the municipality and so on, but hadn't kept up with the training requirements of the job for staff, the equipment upgrades, stuff like that. So there was a lot of change that had to happen. So we did that. And then in 2005, Richmond Hill hired a new CAO who came in, and she was from the city of Toronto and a real mentor. She had a master's in education, loved teaching.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, teaching and mentoring people. Yeah. So she could see the work that I did in the fire department and asked me, there was an opening in one of the commissions. So the way the structure there was we had the CIO and then we had commissioners. And the commissioners had departments under them. So one of the commissioners left, and she asked me if I would take that role on as an acting role while I was still the fire chief.
Wow.
And as a learning experience, which I did. So I took on corporate services, which was the clerk's office, finance, bylaw. What else? There was a number of different areas in there. IT, I think.
Wow, that's a lot.
And while I was still the fire chief, I did that. It was only supposed to be for a few months while they were recruiting another one. But when I took it over, she said to me, "So Shane, I've noticed that you've got a nose for fixing things. And I have some concerns in this area, and that area, and I'd like you to look into it." Mm-hmm. And so I started looking into them and making change. And so she kept me in that role for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. So was that permanent or still acting?
I was acting.
Okay.
Acting. And so I did that. So they finally, we got things all ironed out, and they hired a new commissioner. And I went back to being fire chief. And then another commissioner left, Recreation and Culture. And she asked me if I would take that over. And at that time I said, yeah, I'll take it over, but I don't want to be the fire chief doing it at the same time. I need you to appoint one of the deputies as acting. So, because it was just too much. But anyway, so I did all that. And then in 2010, the whole structure of the municipality was changed, organizational structure. And a department called Community Services was created, which is pretty common now, which involves all front-facing staff. So it was fire services, public works, recreation and culture, bylaw. And I was appointed as the commissioner of community services. So now fire chief, I had to hire a fire chief to report to me. But amazing learning experiences doing all that. So I had those different areas of responsibility report to me in corporate services. Now I had community services report to me. All those areas. So real broad experience. Right. And so then by 2018, I was looking for, the next move for me would be to be a CAO somewhere. So I had been looking around, and Ajax came along, and I ended up here. So I know it's a long story. Are we finished the podcast now? Like that's a long.
Yeah, one question done.
But when I tell that story, I feel like I'm 75 years old because I've done so much. But a lot of it was compressed or done at the same time, right? Like
there was multiple jobs. Wow, that's a really impressive track record, actually.
Thank you. It's really served me well, like in this job as a CAO, because when the different directors or department heads come to me with their issues, I totally understand what they're doing.
You're able to relate to them because you've been in similar scenarios.
Yeah, exactly. When they're talking to me about issues with, stuff at the pools or stuff with, our summer camps or stuff with our snow clearing or fire services or finance.
All very different things.
They're all very different things, but I have a knowledge in them and how they work and how they should work. So it's helped me.
So you mentioned in 2018 is when you were looking for the next step there, and you found Ajax, and obviously you were successful in coming here. What made you drawn to Ajax?
Well, first, because I'm familiar with the area, or at least I thought it was.
Right.
I grew up, like I say, in Pickering, and I left Pickering living with my parents. In 1987, I left. And so when this job opened up, I had applied for other positions as well. But when this job opened up, I was kind of excited about it because it was so close to my
back to your roots.
Back to my roots. But I have to tell you, when I came here for my first interview and I drove around, I could not believe how much Ajax had changed. I think when I left, Pickering, and to go on to be, work in Scarborough for the fire department, I think Ajax at that time was, 35,000 people, maybe probably. Something like that.
My parents were here in the 80s, and my mom was able to pay for the bus for the entire week because there just wasn't that many people getting on the bus, so they remembered her face. That's how small it was.
Wow. Yeah, all I remember is the Peacock farm, and I used to work on the Peacock farms when I was a teenager. Yeah, when I was in high school. So yeah, a real connection with Ajax.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. And so, kind of hearing about your journey to becoming a CAO, what does a typical day look like as the CAO of the Town of Ajax? Probably a hard question to answer.
Well, actually, it's a very easy question to answer. It's just there's only so much I really can tell you. But perfect example is today. So Ajax is also a shareholder for Lexicon Corp, our energy utility here. So as the CIO, I'm also the shareholder rep. I represent council and for decision making and so on. So today we had a shareholders meeting this morning. A number of things going on that required pre-reading of all of the materials and so on. There's some significant decisions that need to be made on the way into work this morning. I'm talking to the mayor. He's concerned about things that are coming forward on that agenda. I'm talking to one of my directors about things that are on the agenda as well. What is the position we're going to take? How are we going to approach this? Stuff like that. My day, I have a calendar like most people do, and I have meetings in my calendars. And that meeting was supposed to go from 8:30 to 9:30. It didn't end until almost 10:30.
Oh, wow.
So so that bumped my, one of my directors was supposed to come and see me at 10. So she didn't get in until 20 after 10. And then, I was supposed to have a half an hour break to be able to finish that and then get here. And realized when I looked at the clock, it was, I was 20 minutes, past what I was supposed to be. So, I mean, it just goes from one thing to another thing to another thing. And I often joke and tell people that I prefer to have meetings in my office, because as soon as I leave my office and start walking down the hall, people grab me.
Yeah, people are looking for
and
answers.
They say, "Oh, I need you to ask you about this. Oh, I need you to ask about that." I was like, "I just need to go to the bathroom."
Just one moment, please.
But no, to be totally honest, I enjoy it. I believe that, I look at my job as being a mentor now, right? I have all of this knowledge and experience, and I have a very young senior team, and my job is to get them ready to take over.
Yeah, right? The next chapter.
Exactly.
Right. No, that's amazing. And so you've clearly had a very successful career, and with that, I'm sure you must have a ton of interesting stories from over the years. Could you maybe share with our listeners one or two of your most unique, or perhaps your most impactful work story you have?
Wow.
I'm sure there's a million to choose from.
Well, when I was a firefighter, it was easy to, have an impression on different people you were serving. Right. We would go to calls and people would be in need. Somebody, may have just found their husband had passed away and so on. So it's about being compassionate and empathetic and understanding the circumstance that they're in, while still actually, I was just talking to somebody else this morning about this, about how being a paramedic or a firefighter is a very difficult job, because yes, you want to be, you need to open up your heart to them to be compassionate, but at the same token, you can't take it in.
Because it'll affect you.
It'll affect you, and it'll affect you, the relationships that you have with your spouse, with your kids, if you let it, if you carry it all.
Right.
So I really enjoyed the ability to do that, to be able to have an impact there. Then moving through into management, I loved being able to make impacts. Like, so if staff were saying to me, all of the different organizations I took over, I made sure that I had a very open door policy. People knew that I'm a straight shooter. I want to hear what you have to say. I'll tell you if it's something that can be done or not, because a lot of times people don't understand how the business works, right? So I'll take the time to explain that to them, and usually it's well received.
And I'm going to assume with that open door policy, it's not just senior staff who are coming to you. It's going to be staff of all levels, right?
Senior staff come to me. That's part of my calendar.
That's your day to day.
That's my day to day. I want junior staff, frontline staff, to feel that they can come and talk to me, and that's happened quite a bit over the years. Right. And some of the things that I'm informed about are easy fixes. They're mountains for these individuals, because they've asked for these things to be changed or fixed, and talk to people about them being problems, but they never get fixed for whatever reason. And so for me to be able to do that, something that is within my control and easy, and just and to the credit of a lot of managers, especially new managers, one of the issues is, and this is part of the mentoring job that I have too, is to teach managers that, like, don't be so risk averse, Yes, you have the authority to make decisions within your area of authority.
Right.
But if something makes sense to you, bump it up, like push it. Don't just hand it off. Own it, see it through to the end, and it's very satisfying to do that.
Yeah, that would be very rewarding to help in that way.
Yeah. So, do I have anything in particular? I guess over the course of the years, I've been able to help other people in their careers
Mm-hmm.
and counsel them and help them reach their goals.
Right.
And there's a number of them, but even since being here in Ajax, we've had a fair bit of turnover at our senior team since I've been here, just retirements and whatever. And you interviewed Jeff Romanowski.
Yes, yeah, he's one of our podcasters. Yep.
Right, and so Jeff had a frustrating time when I first got here because he was a manager in planning, and it was like a revolving door for the department head. So he was like a sponge. He wanted to learn and he wanted to grow, but the department heads just kept changing, so he couldn't. There wasn't a connection there. And so the last time that a department head left, I moved him into an acting role to be the director and department head. Mm-hmm. For two reasons. First of all, to see if it's something he wanted to do, something he felt comfortable in, but also if I felt that he was ready to take it on. So I think we had him do that for about a year. And then we went through a recruitment process. One of the things I was taught early on is even though you do that, you should still test the market, right?
Right. Yeah. See what else is out there.
And it's to the benefit of the individual that's acting too, because if you just hand them the job, then they don't feel like that they've earned it. Like if they actually go into a competition and beat the competition, and really it's their job to lose because they've been doing it for the last year, however mm-hmm. long, then there's more of a sense of accomplishment.
And it may be a little bit more confidence too. Like, hey,
Absolutely.
I've been doing a good job.
Exactly. Yeah. But I remember when I told him that, when I offered him the job after the interview process and so on, he was really taken back. And he said, like, I never expected I would be at this stage in my career, wow. At this time in my life. And he was so appreciative, and it really touched my heart.
No, that's actually really exciting to hear.
Yeah, it was a great story.
Oh, that's actually incredibly rewarding. And, it's funny that you bring up Jeff there, just because part of ours, the last interview we did with him, he kind of spoke about COVID and becoming a director just before the pandemic. And so with that, being a CAO as well, coming into an organization right before the pandemic started, I'm sure you had to pivot through various challenges and even post-pandemic. What are some things that you have found have changed in our community through the pandemic?
Okay, well, I'd like to talk first about our staff community.
Sure. Yep.
So COVID, I had the benefit of being able to rely on my emergency services experience with COVID mm-hmm. because we were all trained in dealing with emergencies and, managing the organization through declared emergencies, and using our emergency operations center and emergency control group and so on, which is our senior team and others that we needed at the table. So it was, I know other CIOs kind of stumbled, and they were at the beginning because they weren't really sure how it was supposed to work and how involved other staff needed to be. But I really enjoyed that because, again, it was a good learning experience for all my senior team. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to them, like it was early on in March of that first year when we first gathered around the table as the municipal emergency control group. And I said to them, so we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions coming down the road.
Right.
And this is where you're going to have to put on your corporate hat as to what's in the best interest of the organization. And what I was talking about was we were going to have to lay people off, which is at the time unheard of in government in general, but especially in the municipal sector.
Well, I don't think we've ever closed all of our facilities before.
No, and that's something. If you had asked me years ago, do you ever think you're going to have to lay people off? No, I never thought I was going to have to lay people off. So it was very difficult, but it was a learning experience for them, and they had to be strong, right, and make the right decision in the best interest of our residents.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my staff team, not only my senior team who were involved in what we call the war room, if you will, but also our frontline staff. I think everybody kind of, they had a tendency to really step up and do their best to understand what was happening. Some people didn't like being redeployed and so on, and I get that. But people came together in the best interest of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then the community, I found what I really liked was prior to COVID, we would get, as a normal daily operation, we get people complaining all the time, right?
Oh, of course.
Complaining about potholes, street lights, whatever. I didn't get my tax bill on time, or you sent it to the wrong address, or whatever the heck it is, right? But during COVID, people were a lot more understanding.
It was lovely to see everybody coming together, the teamwork from staff, the community, the giving. We did tons of programs where the community really answered the call.
Yes. And even though we had our doors closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had our doors closed because we were ordered to by the province, but we still maintained our services. And I'm very proud that a number of municipalities shut down a lot of services, whereas we maintained all of our municipal office services we found ways to be able to provide those services to them.
Well, even like our recreation programs, I remember our curbside pickups, the kits,
Mm-hmm.
people loved them. They were sold out every time. Canada Day was still happening, just virtually. There was fireworks still, but virtually. And it was like, for me, it was amazing to see as a newer staff member, like how incredible the creativity was to adapt and pivot. It was really cool to see.
I do have to say, it's a great place to kind of say this, is that I was so proud and impressed by our staff to just kind of take the baton and run with it. And, you give staff free rein to be creative and use their creative minds to be able to provide those things and implement different programs in the best interest of the community, and they will. Like, they'll just run and run and run. And some senior leaders don't want to give that much latitude because they're worried that they'll see the bill at the end and the bill will be astronomical. But we're all adults. We understand what's reasonable, what's not reasonable, and creative people love being able to be given a blank canvas,
right?
A paintbrush, some paint, and a blank canvas, and just let me do it. And that's when the creativity is the best. Mm-hmm. And so, the virtual fireworks and the I don't know what we called it at the time, but when they did the recognition for the community, where they did the spotlights on the outside of the town hall.
Oh, yes. We lit up town hall. Yeah,
lit up town hall
with the big heart on it. I love those photos.
That's right. And I remember at the time, staff were saying to me, "We've got this big surprise for you, but we can't tell you what it is." And of course, the financial part of me in the back, okay, all right, good. But when it was unveiled, it was amazing, just amazing, and the community loved it.
Yeah, no, I loved that heart. And we did the Stronger Together banners up Harwood, close to the hospital, so that the hospital workers could see it. Right. We did a couple of drive-bys by the hospitals too as a community. And I remember the amount of people that came out for that was incredible. Mm-hmm. We made a really, really cool video about it as well. So actually, for our listeners, if you wanted to check out that community video, it is available on our YouTube video still. I want to say that was probably summer 2020 if you want to go back in the archives.
I thought it was great that our staff recognized the fact that the community was kind of longing for connection, to do something, right? Mm-hmm. And we provided the mechanism for that to happen.
Right.
I thought that was great.
And with that, being a firefighter for so long, do you find that helped you as a leader in an emergency remain calm and be able to really lead the municipality at that time?
So I do think that my fire leadership experience helped me there. being a firefighter, as I talked about a little bit before, is about providing compassion and being empathetic to what people are going through. So I have said whenever I've talked about leadership, no matter in what job you're in, whether it's fire chief, CAO, whatever it is, that a good leader has to have compassion for other people and for the people they serve. A leader that doesn't have compassion for other people doesn't listen to other people. Mm-hmm. If you don't listen to other people, if you don't care about what other people's concerns are and what they think could benefit, the organization and the community at large, if you're not willing to listen to them, then they stop talking, mm-hmm. and then the whole place starts shutting down. Right. The leader can't do it on their own, and in my view, the leader's job is to enable their staff to be able to run the place, to be able to improve the place and make it the best that it can be. So the only way to do that, I think, is to be compassionate. And when people, and it's not only about your staff, but when people come into town hall and they're very mm-hmm. upset about something, you have to be empathetic. You have to be compassionate to what they're talking about, to hear them out. You may not be able to help them. Right. But what I have found is if you take the time to actually sit down with them and listen to them and let them talk about what their concern is, sometimes that's enough.
They feel heard.
They feel heard. You explain to them what you can do, maybe partial fix. Maybe you can fix it all, but
or maybe you can point them in the right direction at least.
That's right. Yeah. And they're so happy that somebody actually cared for them.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The word care is a big one there. So we've been talking about your relationship with staff quite a bit here. I want to switch gears a little bit. Can you explain what the CAO's role is with council and how that relationship works?
So from a technical perspective, the CAO is the top bureaucrat in the organization reporting to council. So I am responsible to make sure that all of council's directions and approved policies and so on are carried out throughout the administration. So if, for instance, council makes a motion that they want, traffic calming on a certain road, then and it's approved by all of council, then I have to make sure that that's carried out, in its simplest form. So that's the technical piece of it. But there's a human piece to it as well, and that is you have. On every municipality, I've served, as I said, a number of different municipalities and role of fire chief and so on. So, again, excellent experience. You have in every case, you have a very eclectic group of people who have different reasons why they wanted to get on council. Right. Maybe it was something that they didn't like the municipality was doing and they wanted to change, or they just want to serve the public. There's all kinds of different reasons. But they all need to be heard as well. And it's the CAO's job, and not only the CAO, but also the senior team's job to have an understanding of what it is that they want to accomplish in their term on council, to help them, right? Because they have the power to be able to make those decisions if they can get the votes on council. But my role is about making sure the relationship between staff and council is positive, especially senior staff and council. Sometimes a counselor will come to me and say, I've tried to get a hold of this particular department head. They're not answering my call and so on. And so I'll have to get involved like that. So I'm the liaison between senior staff, all of staff, but mainly senior staff and council to ensure that relationship continues. But also I'm, and this is always listed in the job description, but I don't, some CAOs aren't good at this. You have to provide advice to members of council as well, because in the administration, we understand how things work. Like when we deal with the provincial government or the federal government, we understand what they are willing to do, what they're not willing to do. Some members of council want to expose the provincial government or the federal government on different issues that they're not taking a stand on. Or
a little bit more of a political stance there.
That's right. There's always a political side to things. So it's about us providing advice to them as to, okay, this is, we understand what you want to accomplish here. This is not something that they will do for you as you've asked them. However, It's about providing strategic advice. What if we pivoted a bit and we took this direction here? You still accomplish some, if not all, of what you want done.
Right.
And this is something that's within their mandate that we can actually advocate for.
Right.
So providing advice to members of council is a big deal.
And so that would be to all members, right? Not just the mayor, regional,
absolutely.
local, all. Okay.
Yeah, I report to all members of council. Now, I work most closely with the mayor, but absolutely, like if the mayor wants to do something, and I know that maybe there's some members of council that wouldn't be in favor of that, I have to advise him of that,
right?
Which he probably already knows. I have to advise him of that, and then tell him, talk to him about strategy. So how are we going to move this forward? What are we going to do? And is there a compromise that you, Mr. Mayor, can make with these members of council so that we can be successful in what you want to get done?
Right.
So there's sometimes I feel like a used car salesman. Sometimes I feel like a stockbroker. Sometimes I feel like, there's all kinds
you have
of
many
different
hats.
Therapists, absolutely. Therapists sometimes.
And so I know even today you said you were talking to the mayor on the way in. How often are you speaking to members of council? Is it something that's every single day? Is it weekly? Is it once a month?
It's daily.
Daily.
Yeah, we had a. So yesterday we had a council meeting at night, and we had an issue going on with something that was on the agenda that we had to make sure there was some misunderstanding amongst a couple of members of council as to this very, very important motion that was coming forward. And we had to make sure that we ironed it out. So my staff and my staff team were on the phone with different members of council, providing them the correct information.
Right.
That's the other thing. It's our job as the senior team when we're making recommendations to council is make sure that we give them all of the information, correct information that they need to make an informed decision.
Yeah,
that's our job.
Making sure there isn't any misconceptions in there.
No misconceptions.
And no inaccuracies, because that can really change how you think about something or how you vote on something.
That's right. And if we know that they're using inaccurate information, it's incumbent upon us to reach out to them and talk to them and say, it's my understanding that this is what you were saying, or this is what
your understanding
your
of
understanding
this
is, and let me talk to you or show you what the correct information is, so for the discussion.
Right. And in those scenarios, would you normally be the one reaching out to them, or do they normally reach out to you?
They're generally reaching out to other staff below me. It's an interesting thing. I said sometimes I feel like a stockbroker, therapist, whatever. Sometimes I feel like the principal.
Right.
And this has happened to me in other areas I've been in. And it's so funny because most members of council will go to staff that report to me first,
right,
to bounce ideas off them before they come to me. And
testing the waters.
They're testing the waters a little bit, right? And it's like, well, I don't really want Shane to know in case it's a crazy idea. And I want to know what I might hear from Shane before I go and talk to Shane.
Right.
Or the staff might tell me how to deal with Shane.
That's actually kind of funny to think about.
That's true. It's a two-way street.
So, Shane, we are coming close to the end of our session here today. Is there anything that you wanted to share that I didn't ask you about, or anything else that you came prepared with maybe to speak about that I didn't mention?
Okay, so this is kind of a funny answer.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I was crazy this morning, going from meeting to meeting. I hadn't put thought into that. But since you've asked me, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you guys for doing this. I think this is an amazing initiative. I don't think that this is common amongst municipalities. I think it's a great opportunity for us to communicate with our staff and with the residents, and for people. I think it's so important for staff and residents to know that we are people just like everybody. Right? We're doing a job just like everybody, and which. That reminds me from yesterday. One of the things we were dealing with was it's a major grant coming from the federal government, and my staff had told me that they had talked to a specific minister, and the minister had told them, like, I don't really know. I'm not sure. They haven't told me. And I thought that was so funny that This is a minister in the federal government who doesn't like. He's a person like anybody else, right? Just trying to get through his day.
Yeah, no, it's true.
and that's what we're doing. That's what we're all doing. If we just work together, staff and community and the municipality, we'll accomplish great things. But anyway, I wanted to really thank you for doing this, and thank you for being so easy on me.
No problem. Next time will be a lot harder, I promise. But even just for our listeners, the main purpose here of TOA Talks and us launching this podcast is we wanted a way for residents to maybe see a little bit more of the inner workings of the town, to get to know us a little bit better, get to know staff who are working in the community here a little bit better. And it's a little bit easier, I think, to hear those details and see what those inner workings are in this kind of a format in comparison to maybe, reading a social media post about something where there's a very limited character count on there, or the information that's on the website is, very, this is what's going on. Here's the information, and you're trying to make it easily digestible. Where something like this, I don't think residents would really know what your relationship is with council without us talking this way, or maybe they might not understand some of the challenges that we face without having these types of discussions. So I really hope the community finds it valuable as well.
Me too. I hope so. As you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, geez, I hope I answered the questions well enough that they have a better understanding.
I think you've done a great job.
Well,
thank you so much, Shane, for joining me today on TOA Talks.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
I'm Devon Jarvis with the Town of Ajax TOA Talks podcast. Episodes can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and on our webpage at ajax.ca/TOA Talks. Listeners can download and listen to each episode offline or online from their personal device. If you have comments or feedback about our show, you can email corporate@ajax.ca. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk later, Ajax.